This is KTN News.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express. We continue to deliberate on the latest developments happening in the country and beyond the borders. But let's stick to Kenya right now, specifically Machakos County, who have just concluded voting yesterday for the position of the senator in that particular county. Vote counting is underway. Our very own Jeff Kirui, who has been following up on this particular story since the inception, is on the ground for us. I understand he is at the constituency's tallying center in Machakos. A very good morning to you, Jeff Kirui. What's the latest in terms of the vote tallying? Do we have a clear winner so far?
Well, very good morning, Jesse. Indeed, being the county constituency tallying center, of course, we're waiting for the results from all the constituencies to be brought here by the returning officer. This particular county has a total of 8 constituencies, and currently we have results from a few of the constituencies. For instance, we have Kangundo constituency, which has actually completed the tallying of the results, and in that particular constituency, Agnes Kabindui is actually leading with 12,985 votes, representing 84% of the total votes cast, and his close competitor, that is the UDA candidate Banas Mudhama Ngengele, actually garnered 1,096 votes, representing 7%. The voter turnout in that constituency is 29.32%. So that indicates how the turnout was for the entire exercise, of course reflecting across the country. Now let's go to Kadhiani constituency. In Kadhiani constituency, Agnes Mudhama Kavindu of Wiper is leading again in that constituency with 13,000 votes against Abana Mudhama Ngengele, who garnered 1,231 votes with a turnout of 27.4%. In Masinga constituency, they've actually also completed the tallying of the results, and Agnes Kavindu is leading with 12,910 votes in that constituency against Abanas Mudhama Ngengele, who has 1,255 votes. The turnout is 24.2 in Kadhiani, in Masinga constituency. Now, in Mwala constituency, Agnes Kavindu as well is leading with 12,718, representing 58% of the total votes cast, and Abanas Ngengele has 8,267, representing 38% of the total votes cast. And in this constituency of Mwala, the voter turnout was 27.12%. So clearly it shows that across the counties there was a low voter turnout, something that we witnessed yesterday. Now let's go to Yatta constituency, and Agnes Kavindu is leading with 13,510 votes against Abanas Ngengele, who has 982 votes, representing 7% of the total votes cast. In that constituency, the turnout was actually very low, with 20.23%. I think those are the results that we have so far. In Machakos, Machakos town constituency, the tallying is still ongoing, and out of 190 polling stations reporting so far, out of the 213 in total, Mudhama Agnes Kavindu has 16,738 votes, and Abanas Mudhama has 3,266, representing 15%, but they are still counting. About 30 polling stations are still not yet in. So those are the results that we have here. In Kangundo constituency, we have Agnes Mudhama with 12,985, Abanas Mudhama 1,096. I think I had gone through that. So there are still other constituencies we are waiting for their results. One of them is Mavoko, which we're waiting for the results to arrive here officially. But as it stands now, it appears like Wiper Party's candidate Agnes Kavindu is leading with a big margin, but the official results will be announced by the county returning officer once they are done with all the polling stations. The polling stations in this constituency are 1,335. So we will wait for that all the polling stations to report in, and then now ultimately the returning officer will call it in and announce, declare the winner, and ultimately given the certificate. Jesse.
Definitely continue monitoring the state of affairs in Machakos. Our very own Jeff Kirui right there at the County Tallying Center, bringing us the latest in terms of the vote counting. Of course, there seems to be a clear leader in this particular by-election as the vote counting is still continuing. Remember, the county returning officer will definitely give us the winner in this particular election. But out of 213 polling stations, 190 have reported so far, according to Jeff Kirui, who has been following up on this particular story. So as soon as there's any development, we'll definitely keep you informed right here on KTN News. Many thanks, Jeff Kirui. And of course, that is perhaps one of the conversations we'll be touching on right now with the gentlemen in studio. Allow me to reintroduce them. Gitile Naituli, former NCIC commissioner. We're also joined by George Kifi, who's a lawyer and advocate. Joe Mutambu joins us via way of Zoom as a former Mwingi Central Member of Parliament, as well as Kasim Tandaza joining us from Mombasa via way of Zoom. He's a Matuga Member of Parliament. Gentlemen, I'd like to begin on that note. Joe Mutambu, even as you give us your take perhaps on some of the sentiments we shared earlier on, perhaps what do you note about the by-election? And the vote counting is still ongoing, but what's your instant reaction to the figures that have just been given to us by a reporter?
Well, unfortunately, we were not getting the voice from your reporter. But what I know is that if you are keen in our politics, you know that Joe Mutambu was one person who was urging the Kamba community to join the government. And I'm one very happy person after our party leader, who is Kalonzo Musyoka, joined the government. Because I know politics is all about interest. And the interest of the community, you can only serve them better, or you can only have them when you are in government. And that's what I've been telling Kambas, that let us join the government. I am out of parliament, courtesy of supporting Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I don't regret it. I'm happy that after they lost the election, they came to realization that yes, it is in government where we need all Kambas ought to be, and none other than our party leader now, or I would call him our kingpin, because my party leader is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. I'm a Jubilee person, decided to take the entire community to where I was telling them to be. So this is what is being seen in Machakos. Machakos people, yes, we know Kavindu is vying with a Wiper ticket, but with a coalition of government. If we was with opposition, I would be having some issues. But now I'm a very comfortable person because he is where I all told them to be. So what is happening in Machakos, true, is that Kambas have realized that Mutambu was right, and they are following what I told them, and I'm one very happy person.
Okay, we'll definitely see the outcome of the election, even as we continue monitoring that. Let me cross over to you, George Kifi. Perhaps your quick reaction to what we've just witnessed in terms of the latest from the ongoing vote counting process in Machakos. It seems Wiper Party is leading as of now, UDA are coming in a distant second. But even as you give us your quick reaction, what do you make of the latest move by the MCC candidate through the party leader Alfred Mutua to actually withdraw, even though it's not officially according to IEBC?
Well, what I think is this is influenced by the national politics. The BBI seems to bring together a form of coalitions, one to put in BBI as it is, but transit from the pre-BBI period into the formations that come with BBI. It is a distinct competition that's emerging between those that come together as proponents of BBI versus the deputy president. The deputy president doesn't seem to have put up numbers in terms of leaders with influence as would occupy spaces of a coalition. What I think the government has done, I say government because of the involvement of the president himself. He put up numbers, and he put up specifically certain specific numbers into those that drive the BBI from Ukambani. So he has Wiper, he has a Wiper leader, he has Ngilu, and they seem to have put in the governor of Machakos in there. Those are the three most influential leaders at the county level in Ukambani. And all of them joined hands in a bid to put up a show of force at the senatorial position that was in competition with UDA. Basically, it is almost all the political parties that have most influence in the country versus UDA. Therefore, it was obviously not surprising that the result is that almost 80% has been taken by the coalition. I'll call it coalition, although the candidate is from Wiper, because of the influence that comes with it. But again, it goes into the local politics between Mudhama and the Wiper leader. They was once very close associates in politics, but when they differed, one walked away, but one remained. But they've all been battling for more influence and dominance in Ukambani politics. It was one of those times that Kalonzo Musyoka had the opportunity to cement his position, and his star and influence has certainly been rising in Ukambani because he seems to have put up his gear up, but most importantly, get the Ukambani leadership together, and also they seem to be gravitating towards government in terms of Jubilee and the association with the president. Now, what is important to note here is that this will certainly transit into the BBI politics as it moves into the public for purposes of the referendum. When that transits, BBI simple act in terms of reforming the law and the constitution is to expand the executive so that the executive has more people, more positions, and that is where these coalitions as form will transit for purposes of occupying those positions. Trying to put it the other way is that BBI seems to be ratifying coalition politics. And as such, it will definitely be triumphant on part of Kalonzo with the coalition if then the statistics and the numbers go as we have seen.
Okay. Professor, I don't know what position you'd be in if you are a UDA insider. Coming from the just concluded by-elections, it seems they were able to back the London MCA ward. Many might argue that Msambweni did go their way considering they were supporting that particular candidate. But now from the Kabuchai Matungu by-elections, and right now from the way we've just observed from Machakos by-election, and the vote counting is ongoing, what would you say about the momentum of UDA so far, and how exactly was the Super 7 alliance instrumental in perhaps stopping this particular momentum, as many might argue?
My take home on this by-election is that women actually, they need to be given a chance by political parties. They need to be nominated, and this proves that they can be as competitive as men. About the UDA and Wiper, Wiper is an established party in Ukambani. You have to see how party structures work. The party structures work from the ward, they work from constituencies, and then up to the county level. UDA has no structures in the ward, in Ukambani or in Kabuchai or in Matungu, because it's about 2 months or 3 months on the party. So I don't know how much to compare there. But again, UDA is associated with the deputy president. Deputy president has been a member of Jubilee. I don't know how many Kenyans are going to have Jubilee back if they have an opportunity actually to vote on it. That is a question out there. So I wouldn't read too much into this one, into these by-elections myself, if I was advising the UDA, because it's a young party. It's a party that needs to put the structures. But having said that, you have to understand that the established politicians They have networks. And those networks are called upon to come and support their candidates, and those networks are delivered in all the places which you have mentioned. But also, when I hear people talk about being in government, it scares me, because devolution was supposed to cure this madness of being in government. It was supposed to give us resources. You see, once we elect a government, that becomes a government of Kenya. It's not a government of those people who supported it. It's a government of all of us. So this is the kind of ideas I would like to for us to have, so that we can transcend this business that for you to get anything done, you need to be in government. We brought in devolution exactly for this. But the more important, I think, for us as citizens, we need to understand once our government is in office, is our government.
Okay, that's interesting. Kasim Tandaza, as a member of ANC, perhaps you can speak from an informed position on the importance of this particular alliances, especially in delivering not just the by-elections, but perhaps going into the 2022 general election. What is the plan? What is the way forward?
Thank you, Jesse. Before I go into that, really, I would want to say something about Msambweni. That is the coastal region where I come from. And probably it's high time that people realize, I don't think one would even ascribe the win of Faisal, the independent candidate, right on the strength of UDA. Remember, by that time, of course, the UDA was yet to be really born. But there is the other issue of ODM, which definitely played a role here. Let's admit, and I've always said that me, I'm a realist. There is the ideal situation, I agree with it, but the real position in the ground, especially in costs, I would have called them Msambweni vote as a vote in protest to ODM. You see, there were so many things that could be a whole debate. But for sure, our colleagues, I belong in ANC, but they should realize cost, things are different. So to me, I would really put it that the voting in Msambweni was like a protest vote against ODM, and that is the reality on the ground. We can talk about the ideals later on. When it comes to the issue of the by-elections, as we all know, by-elections is not basically about the candidate. It is about the forces, the higher forces up there. And it has come out to play realistically in Kabuchai, in Matungu, and now in Machakos. Coalitions are there. It is the way to go. My party leader is in the coalition, now loosely translated, being mentioned as One Kenya. And politics is regional. Even Joe Mutambo, when he talked about it, it's unfortunate that he talked about a tribe, the Kamba tribe. I wish we could be a little bit higher up there and talk about regions instead of talking about a tribe. Because us from coast, actually, we cannot talk about tribe. We can talk about a region. Right. And the way to go. And going 2022, that is what we are also aiming at. We cannot avoid talking about the government, Professor. That is the reality on the ground. Still with devolution, but a bigger chunk of the resources are still at the national government. That is the money, those are the resources that my people or any other Kenyan would want to access. And yes, the president is for the whole country, but right from independence, we have to admit, it has never worked that way. Whoever has the presidency, he gets a bigger chunk of appointments in the civil service, in the parastatals, in ambassadorial appointments, mega projects follow their way. It is the reality on the ground. Okay. And if we cannot confront reality, we talk about the ideal situation, which we know is not there. Professor knows it's not there. It's not going to help. And it's out of that reality that us as a region, we've also come to realize going forward, we need to organize ourselves and put ourselves in a position where we can access those resources. It's not the ideal situation, but that's the reality. And if others are doing it, we have every right to join it. But going forward, certainly the next government will be formed out of coalitions.
All right.
of course, it's my intention as a leader to belong to that particular coalition.
Okay, let's bring in Joe Mutambo, who perhaps understands the nature of politics in Ukambani region and how, people usually comment politics is quite local. Mutambo, what's your take on this particular matter? What does perhaps a win for Wiper Party, if things go their way right now, mean for Kalonzo Musyoka in terms of asserting his authority in the region? And perhaps the advocate brought up a particular matter about Mudhama. Talk to us about the Mudhama factor. He's the UDA party chair. What does this election mean for his political clout and muscle, not just within the party, but Ukambani region as well?
Just to correct a few sentiments which has been made. One, it is true that politics may be regional or tribal, but just to clear the air, I was not vying for the region. I was vying for a place called Mingi Central, and it is only Kambas who are there. So when I say Kambas, I was talking to the people who are there.
Are you sure, Mutambo? Just Kambas?
That is the point number one. The rest of people who vote there, they are less than 1 or 2%. Okay, who vote there. So mainly it's campus. And let us be very practical here. Let us be very practical. There are some places where you can say a party is a regional party, like in the coast, like in like in Nyanza, where we have Kisi and Luo Nyanza. And but when you talk of Wiper, you are just saying Kampa. There's no other language you are talking about there. It's Kampa. Wiper is Kampa. Although that is not the way it's supposed to be by law. It's supposed to be a national party, not even regional. But the way we have cascaded our politics in Kenya, we have divided them either in regions or in tribes. You call this party, it belongs to this to this tribe. You call this party, it belongs to this either region or this tribe. So, but when it comes to Mutambo as a person and the seat I was eyeing for, it was for Kamba and it was for Mingi Central. And I have no apology to make for that. And whoever stays in Mingi Central by default or whether it's any other tribe, he has a right to live in Mingi, but the majority there are Kambas, and that's why I mentioned Kambas. Coming back now to the region of Ukambani, we have no we cannot compare Kalonzo with any other leaders in Ukambani. It has come to pass. He is the de facto leader in Ukambani. And we did not say, even those who were opposing him then, we knew that he is the leader of the Kambas. And what we were pursuing him to do, we told him, Mr. and Your Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, let us put the Kambas into the government. We were not saying that we want to take up the position of leadership in Ukambani. And this is where Mudhama is now coming in. That Mudhama came in and said, I want to be the leader of Kambas. So he is creating a rift between him and his ally, Kalonzo Musyoka. Something which did not augur well with the Kambas. He may take a view with him out there. But the fact remains that today, whether we like it or not, and I want to tell Kenyans that the leader of Ukambani as it is Kalonzo Musyoka. That is the person whom Kambas associate themselves as their leader. As the people in Luo Nyanza or in Western, they'll tell you that our leader is Ibaba, whether you like it or not. So that is how it is. When you go to Coast, people in the Coast, they may want to say, we are going to form our own party and we are going to choose our leader, even though ODM has got some inroads in Coast. That does not mean that Raila is the leader of the Coastarian. Okay. They will get their own leader. And this is, to me, according to me, these are politics which actually we need to think about whether this is the best way forward. That having kingpins as opposed to having national leaders who will be able and who will be accepted in the entire country to lead us. This is another discussion which we should be having. And this is my way of thinking, that this politics of kingpins, it hurts people most, because those people like Kasim who have different views will not get a chance either to lead or to get a position, because you're having a different views against the kingpin, and then the kingpin will go there with his armor, and the armor you have and you will not get a position.
Mutambo,
and
quick question.
Exactly
Quick question.
Yes.
You definitely have informed us that, according to your perspective, Kalonzo Musyoka is the kingpin, quote unquote, of the Kamba region. What about the various positions that Wiper holds in that particular region? Let's start with the governor's position, perhaps as we scale down. How many governors did Wiper secure during this particular term in order to perhaps substantiate that claim?
Let me tell you, you go to Kitui, where I come from. Honorable Kaluki Ngilu, Charity Kaluki Ngilu, became a governor because she associated herself with Kalonzo. Kibula Kibwana became a governor in Makueni. Actually, he was the chairman of Wiper. Remember, he had his own party, but he had to ditch his party to become a chairman of Wiper so that he can get his seat back. The issue of Mutua is a debate for another day, because there's a lot of stories surrounding the re-election of Mutua. Is a man I respect, he's my good friend. Yes, people made their decision. It is very true that when we came as the opposing side from Jubilee, yes, we created a rift. And actually, Wiper did not get all the seats in Ukambani as it did the last general election. So yes, there was some division. People also felt that, yes, we need to be in government, or we need to do things differently. Right. There are those who did not agree with Kalonzo. There are those who agreed with Mutua. There are those who agreed with Kibwana, with Kilu. But the truth of the matter is, most of those governors, and I want to tell you, and that's why we see, we don't, allow me to say this, and if I had anybody, I beg for forgiveness. That's why we don't grow politically, because our politics is centered on kingpins, and people do what kingpins want. They do not exercise their minds fully, because for the fear of unknown, that if I say this, the kingpin, I will hurt my kingpin and I will not get my position. There are people who are in parliament today courtesy of their kingpins, not because of themselves. And they will sing the song of their kingpin until the last minute, and they will not even change. Even if the kingpin is wrong, they will not dare to tell them.
Okay.
And this is the problem.
So
if we cannot speak our mind, then we can...
It goes without saying that's the nature of politics in the country. I'd like Joe Mutam, I'd like George Keithy's input on this particular matter. The nature of politics, perhaps what the outcome of the Machakos by-election might portend for the region, and going forward to 2022, especially the input of coalitions. What does this mean? Because we definitely might see more coalitions coming up once the BBI process is finalized.
Thank you. I think human nature is approaches life by first existing and protecting himself. You see, first and foremost, you must exist in your own setup as a person and compete for space, and therefore to dominate over any other thing that competes against you for you to thrive. Then there's a family setup. The family setup then recognizes you as a child of that family. It then endorses you and feeds you, educates you, so that you become what you are. And therefore your immediate identity shall be your family. Then there's the societal fiefdom that comes with either the clan that you come from or the tribe that you come from. Eventually, when you grow up into society, there are distinct issues you associate yourself as immediately affecting you, which you relate to. And therefore, you recognize yourself as foremost with attachments and emotions to those things as opposed to others. That's the competitive environment you'll eventually have to contend with in your life. That's the individual. What happens in this country is that the person is beholden to his tribe and ethnicity and regional background as opposed to the patriotism of the country. Put it this way, most of the time you're first your ethnic association as opposed to the Kenyan you're supposed to be. The day when then we reach there, where we look at ourselves and make decisions as Kenyans as opposed to our ethnic associations and a background, so that then ethnocentrism takes a later stage to patriotism for the country, that then changes the narrative. As it is, the dominant factor is ethnicity. It is what defines our policy, it's what defines our laws, because we've said there must be ethnic balancing in public service, there must be ethnic balancing here and there. By the way, the ethnic identity is higher than even the gender identity in this country. So when we speak about the Kamba region, we look at it first from a regional point of view, but most importantly, what will be dominant in the talk and the content of the talk shall be the ethnicity, so that then the ethnocentric approach to politics shall be that the Kambas are pronouncing themselves in the context of the regional element, of the ethnic element there. Yeah. The competition for leadership in Kambas has been evolving over time, but what we see now is that we have had Kalonzo Musyoka and Muthama jostling for influence. There has been the element of Ngilu and the governor of Makueni over time. The governor of Makueni has pronounced himself that he will be willing to take a stab at presidency. Ngilu has been more vocal in recent past on account of her approach to coalition politics, that the Kamba region will come together and the Kambas will then align themselves to a coalition that will be in the next government, because in the next government they benefit more than if they were in the opposition, and so on and so forth. As we speak, the person who seems to negotiate for the Kamba tribe better than any other with the government seems to be Kalonzo Musyoka. Whether he's negotiating for a stab at presidency, whether he's negotiating for the highest office, or to remain in the coalition as will be in the new setup in the constitution at the executive level from the BBI reform approach, then probably is what then informs the politics today, that every region then produces someone that sits in government, seemingly because when somebody sits in government, then that person that person will be influential and probably the region benefits more. That is the reason why you see Coast is not, although the party that has been dominant there has been ODM, they seem to be entertaining the thought of having their own political party, a regional political party, just like Wiper is a regional political party in Ukambani, so that then they can have the same negotiating tool as the Kamba people seem to have in the Wiper party. So as for influence of the region, I believe the nexus and the romance between the Wiper leader and the government will continue to be seen even at higher levels, because he seemed to angling the Gideon Moi factor and seemed to be in Raila's intimacy as we speak, and so on and so forth. And therefore, the region seemed to be jostling around the coalition thought process, so that then eventually, if the government is formed, the component of leadership shall be regional, put together to form eventually the national government. Okay, that's interesting. You've definitely broken it down. Professor Gitile Naituli, let's talk about this new emerging alliance, ANC Ford Kenya, KANU, Wiper. Definitely had a little bit from advocate here, but in terms of political clout and the segregation of ODM from this particular arrangement, what do you make of it in terms of their eligibility going forward in terms of political clout as we approach the election?
I think that is the coalition to watch. ODM, unless I think Raila agree to support that coalition, in the end Raila may very well be alone. You have to remember that the coalition we just talked about, these are people, Mdabandi, Kalonzo, who have supported Raila 2 elections, not 1. Probably 3, I don't remember the other one. But I know 2 elections they have supported him. And so the idea was that he returns the hand. And I think he either returns the hand in that direction, or given the sentiment being expressed here, he will probably be a seriously lone ranger. Okay. So the coalition is the coalition that will compete with whichever coalition it forms on the other side, because there wouldn't be another coalition. This is a coalition that will move to compete. And, it has actually very sober politicians, because when you look at who makes that coalition, and I'll just talk about two people, Mudavadi and Kalonzo, I think these are very sober people. They're sober Ghanaian politicians. Especially Mudavadi is really very well informed on the economic situations in the country. So that is the coalition to watch.
Even as we watch that coalition, Kasim Tandaza, we've had of perhaps speculation that the possibility of Ruto and Raila working together is definitely in the air. So what might this possibility mean for this coalition we're touting as a coalition to watch? Briefly, as we conclude.
Thank you. I think about coalitions, they are going to be there. In politics, you cannot say never until the time has come to pass. In politics, a day is a very long time. We are talking of still 1.5 years to come. So this is a very long time. And you cannot certainly rule any coalition at this point, not just about Raila and Ruto, but about any other leader coming into a coalition. I think the unimaginable has happened in this country and happened well and coexisted. So this one can be there. But I will pick from what Professor just said. I wish coalitions, as they come, will come on the basis of policies and ideologies.
All right.
So that when, like he has said, the ANC party leader, Musalia Mudavadi, comes in strongly on the issue of the economy of this country, which resonates so well, which helps this country, then the other leaders also come up with another policy to take this country forward, not just for the purposes of winning elections.
All right.
But here we have coalitions for winning elections. And I would really thank the lawyer, George Keith. Remember, he also comes from the coastal regions. He has put it so well that realistically, we cannot go into the next general election without organizing ourselves a region. And we are talking about resources, and that's the reality. So going forward, that is the way to go. I will just give me 1 second. There's this notion which we keep on talking about UDA, that it is a new party. For heaven's sake, this is a party which was just rebranded. It's not a new party. 2, parties in Kenya is about the individuals. For as long as it is associated with the deputy president who's been here in politics for decades, then certainly it's not a new party. I think it's a point now to organize themselves and get the reality on the ground instead of saying we've lost because we are no party. I don't think I could buy that.
Okay, Kasim Tandaza, shooting from the hip right there. Just like briefly, perhaps Joe Mutambu, your take on this particular issue, 30 seconds if possible as we conclude.
Let me say this. Coalitions will be there. But what will matter most in our country, and this would be my advice today, is the candidate who will be picked to be the flag bearer. That will matter a lot. Number 2, any person thinking that Raila will be alone out there, I don't know whether they live in this country or they have the history of Raila Amolo Odinga, a person who has stayed outside the government, but actually, in a real sense, is the person who enjoys the government more than any other person. So I don't agree when I hear that Raila will be a lone ledge. Raila will find a position for himself and for his people. This is given, and he will find a way to. And I will tread very carefully with one man, Raila Amolo Odinga. This is not a man I can just push over and say where we candle. And in our politics, he plays a very vital role in our politics, and we cannot wish him away.
Okay.
Number 2, when we talk about the deputy president, we need to understand also the wave he has created. We need to understand that what we are fighting today, we are fighting a wave which has been created by the deputy president. As people of government, this is what we are fighting, and we have to be very careful. And politics is all about perception. What we are seeing today, we cannot carry it forward to the election. We need to align ourselves and to be live to the fact that things can change tomorrow in politics. And the alignment which will bring forward is what will determine who will be the flag bearer. You will see so.
All right. Well, Joe Mutambu right there, definitely speaking sense in terms of the nature of politics in the country. Many thanks. He's a former Mwingi Central Member of Parliament. We're also joined by Kasim Tandaza via way of Zoom, giving us his reactions as well. He is a Matuga Member of Parliament, member of ANC. Gitile Naituli, Prof, it's always a pleasure. Former NCIC Commissioner, and George Keefe, who definitely did join us and gave us his input, perhaps from a legal perspective, and he received hits a little bit just because of that. But many thanks for standing for the rule of law. Gentlemen, I appreciate your presence right here. Let's take a short break, even as we continue with Morning Express. Enough about politics and policy issues this time round. Brian Aseli will be coming forth with the latest in